Today I'm going to talk about my E-Flite RV-7 and the modification I done to put floats on this RC airplane. But first, before I describe how I did it, let's go outside and get this one up in the air. So reverse thrust when you have floats is really useful. And today I have kind of a strong wind coming from my right side. Let's just face the wind. So this is like my fifth flight with the floats on the RV-7 then. And I think when you actually get this one up in the air, it flies more or less like the RV-7 then without floats. It is a little bit more pitch sensitive because I think that the floats do add more weight to the rear, and then you have it a little bit slightly too much actually tail heavy. So I have the battery pushed all the way forward, and I also adjusted the elevator just to point down just a little bit to have this one flying level. But when you roll or do loops, I don't think there's really much difference compared to the stock RV-7 then. So this flight is on a 4S 2200 mAh battery. I set a timer for 5 minutes, which is usually a good time if you push this RC airplane. It's really a nice day. Great cloudy sky just for orientation and for filming. The wind is not really too bad, it's constant more or less, and about 5 meters per second. And when you just face the wind, it can slow down really good. And as with all RC airplanes, I think that float flying is so fun. It's just usually the plane looks better, and it's just really fun to either, regardless if it's ice or snow or water, it's just really a great time flying. And rudder is just as effective with floats than as it is without floats. I don't think that rudder would influence performance. I think it's mostly the elevator, and maybe it's a little bit more sluggish on the roll axis then. So I've had to adjust the flap settings quite much just to try it out, and right now it's about, for half flaps, around 11%, and for full flaps around 17% elevator mix then. Because it want to pitch up, of course I have this headwind, and then most RC will just pitch up a little bit. I also discovered that when you have flaps engaged and when you go out of flaps, the plane do want to drop. So just like there, I just remove the flaps and then the plane just starts dropping. So I wouldn't do it on low altitude, or I would just start pushing the throttle first and then go out of flaps. So just compare then when you fly this one in stock configuration with wheels. You can go in and out of flaps in a much smoother manner without the plane dropping. I think when you go into flaps, it's quite smooth transition. So I think my mix is quite good. So we have about 1 minute left on this flight then. You can really slow this one down. It's a very forgiving RC airplane, this RV-7. It doesn't really want to have any bad stall tendency or squirrely behavior. And I'm glad that even with floats, although it's a little bit, just fight the wind a little bit, it's not bad. It's just takes a little bit of trimming. Now we're down again. This ice is really slippery. So I discovered that in order to make a turn just towards me, then I have to push the throttle and make a turn, and then it turns around pretty quick. And on ice it's hard to get it stopped, but then you have the very useful feature then of reverse thrust. So you can just go around and having a really good time on the ice as well, if you like. Even with floats, I think this RV-7 is just a fantastic RC plane. I mean, I had to make a lot of trimmings with the RV-7 just to have it fly as good as without floats. So first off, I had to move the battery all the way forward, because I think that the added mass and the added weight of these floats, they do make the RV-7 a little bit more tail heavy, so it's more pitch sensitive. I did also reduce the elevator rate to 90%, and I put in a 45% expo, which I think just made this one really well controlled. I also had like 30% expo on both the aileron and the rudder is super effective. I just was surprised that I could do so many nice, kind of tight turns with this RC plane, even with floats then. I also had to adjust the flap setting, because on my second, or my first RV-7, which I used then just to fly with wheels, I had it set up by the manual and it works just great. But with this one, I had to do for like half flaps. I had around 11-12% elevator mix, and then for full flaps I have like 16-17%. So I didn't really nail it down to the exact perfect percentage, but it was close enough. But I mean, just a little bit more pitch sensitive, which I think is due to the added weight to the rear of the RC plane then. And the way I did the modification, these are FMS floats. So these I took from my FMS Ranger 1200mm, and they are like standard FMS floats, which you get for the Super E's. And I also think that the exact same floats are included with the E-Flite M7, because they look more or less similar. But I removed the wheel pans and the wheels of the stock landing gears then, and I just drilled a hole into the mount for on floats then, just to have this the pin on the landing gear just to fit inside. So that was this part then. And on the rear section I used the included braces then that just comes with the float set. And I put a hole so I could just slide this one inside through the wing. And I have two plywood pieces, so there's one on the outside and there's one on the inside. And these are mainly because I want to have a really sturdy mount, and also so I can have these two mounting points. So I have a little bit of a metal bracket that I just bend in place. And I have a screw, and on the other side I have a nut that goes into the plywood, and it's held by glue. So it's a really simple modification. And the great thing about these floats then compared to E-Flite floats is that these do come with a water rudder, which is just super necessary when you fly this one on water and on floats. And there's an included servo also, which is just made waterproof. And I run this lead then through the vent on the underside of the RC plane and into the spare channel on the AR6 31 receiver. So I just had to tie this channel then to the rudder, so that both the rudder on the RC plane and the water rudder, they turn in the same direction. So that was quite simple once I just figured out how to do it on this RC plane. And if I could do it again, I suppose I probably would somehow just put a little bit more weight on the forward of the RC plane, because this is, as I said, a little bit tail heavy, which then makes it pitch sensitive. But I mean, for such a kind of a added weight on this RC plane, I think it just flies almost as good as the stock one with wheels. It's a little bit more sluggish when you do things, but it also could be the wind, because I had like a about 5 meters per second wind just coming from one direction. So of course this RC plane did have to fight the wind a bit. And I'm super interested to get this one flying on water on my summer location. So I would certainly just bring this one and come back to the RV-7 and do proper float water flying in the future. And when you're tired of flying this RC plane, And when you have such a nice ice, you can just go out and drift and just use this one as an RC car. So lots of fun with an RC plane even when you're not flying.